Of all the secrets history tries to bury, few are as haunting as this: some queens bled out on silk sheets so that empires could live. Can you imagine being pregnant 1416, even 23 times each time, wagering your life for the crown? Behind every jeweled diadem and marble palace lies a darker chapter, a hidden saga of royal mothers who became dynastic engines, pumping life into bloodlines while draining the life from their own veins. This is not just royal history, it's the untold royal history, the dark royal secrets that textbooks often leave out. These were women who ruled kingdoms from gilded thrones, and yet were prisoners of their own wombs, trapped in a relentless cycle of pregnancies, miscarriages, and funeral processions for tiny coffins. They birthed armies of princes and princesses, but many held babies only to watch them die, each loss carving grief into hearts already bruised by political intrigue. Their stories are the backbone of royal families whose legacies still shape our world, from the towering white domes of the Taj Mahal to the stone crosses scattered across English landscapes. Today, we delve into the hidden world of royal mothers, women whose bodies were battlefields where politics, love, and destiny collided. These are the tragic queens, the forgotten queens, the powerful women in history who paid the ultimate price for the survival of empires. She didn't just wear the crown, she became the lifeblood of an empire, and the price was her own. Mumtaz Mahal, born in 1593 into a Persian noble family, stepped into the Mughal court as the favorite wife of Shah Jahan, the man destined to rule one of the wealthiest and most dazzling empires on earth. Their love story often glitters in history books, shining with romance and devotion, but behind those shimmering tales lies a truth soaked in both passion and blood, a truth that belongs among the greatest dark royal secrets and untold royal history the world has yet to fully reckon with. Though Shah Jahan kept other wives for obligation, his soul belonged to Mumtaz. She followed him not only into palaces, but onto battlefields, a queen whose presence was as commanding as any general. Yet her body became the true battlefield, enduring 14 pregnancies across 19 relentless years. 14 times she risked her life carrying royal heirs in a world where every childbirth was a wager against death. Only 7 of her children survived the cruel gauntlet of infancy, a brutal reminder that even royal blood offered no shield from fate's sharp edge. Among the living were Jahanara Begum, who would wield immense influence at court, and Aurangzeb, destined to become emperor himself, carving his own name into the chronicles of power and conquest. But Mumtaz's ultimate sacrifice came with her 14th labor, a harrowing 30-hour ordeal that bled away her strength and her breath. The silken sheets of her chamber, once symbols of opulence, became stained witnesses to the end of a love story that had defied the odds. Shah Jahan, shattered beyond measure, poured his grief into stone, giving the world the Taj Mahal, a breathtaking monument to eternal love and the silent testimony to a queen who gave everything. And while marble minarets still scrape the skies of Agra, the truth remains: the Taj Mahal stands because a woman died to build it. Yet even Mumtaz's sacrifice was not the greatest burden borne by royal mothers, for elsewhere in palaces echoing with lullabies and political whispers, other queens were paying an equally devastating price, and their stories too demand to be told. At 17 years old, Charlotte of Mecklenburg-Strelitz slipped a golden ring onto her finger and stepped into the gilded vortex of the British monarchy, becoming Queen Charlotte consort to King George III. A man who would oscillate between regal authority and haunting bouts of madness. History remembers her for refinement and quiet dignity, but behind the portraits framed in gilded wood and the velvet drapes of royal chambers lies a truth woven into the fabric of dark royal secrets and untold royal history. She was a woman consumed by the endless cycle of pregnancies, her body, a relentless engine for the survival of the crown. Over just 2 decades, Queen Charlotte bore 15 children, a staggering feat, even by royal standards, branding her among the most prolific royal mothers in history and carving her name into the chronicles of powerful women in history who sacrificed everything for empire. Yet within her carefully penned letters and polite royal smiles, the strain simmered like a secret fire. During her 14th pregnancy, she confessed in writing, I don't think a prisoner could wish more ardently for his liberty than I wish to be rid of my burden, revealing the suffocating weight of expectations pressing down on her spine and spirit. She was not merely a queen. She was a vessel required to produce princes and princesses to stabilize dynastic power in an age when succession meant survival. Among her 15 children were figures who would shape Britain's future: George IV, William IV, and Prince Edward, whose own daughter would become the legendary Queen Victoria. But beneath the empire's shining facade lay personal loss. Charlotte would outlive many of her children, her maternal triumphs shadowed by the quiet sorrow of burying those she once cradled. Still, she endured an emblem of resilience cloaked in royal silk. And though her portrait graces the halls of Windsor, the story of her private suffering remains an undercurrent in the dark royal secrets seldom told aloud. Yet even Queen Charlotte's burden was not the heaviest carried by queens of her era, for across distant courts and turbulent kingdoms, another royal mother would fight not only for heirs, but for the survival of a dynasty itself. At just 18 years old, Anna of Bohemia and Hungary entered the towering halls of the Habsburg dynasty, a realm notorious for its gilded power and its dark royal secrets of frailty, disease, and bloodlines poisoned by generations of inbreeding. Yet, Anna, fresh-faced and descended from a less entangled lineage, became a breath of vitality for a family desperate for new blood. Her marriage to Ferdinand III, grandson of the formidable Holy Roman Emperor Maximilian, was intended as a strategic alliance, but blossomed into a rare royal love story that would reshape the tapestry of Europe's untold royal history. Over the span of her marriage, Anna endured 15 pregnancies, her womb transformed into a political crucible where emperors, queens, bishops, and even nuns were forged, each child a pawn in the relentless game of power that defined the destiny of powerful women in history. 13 of those children survived a miraculous feat in an era when death loomed over every cradle, making Anna not just a queen, but the mother of a dynasty whose branches would reach into every throne room across the continent. Yet behind her serene royal portrait lies a darker truth soaked in quiet agony. Her final pregnancy became the blade that cut through the fragile balance of power and love. Stricken with childbed fever, a ruthless postpartum infection that claimed countless royal mothers, Anna died at just 43 years old, leaving Ferdinand devastated and the empire stunned. Her loss was not merely a wound to her husband's heart, it was a seismic political blow that reverberated through Europe's corridors of power, for she was more than a consort. She was the vital artery that kept the Habsburg future alive. Ferdinand never took another wife, honoring her memory as he rose to the throne of Holy Roman Emperor 9 years later. And while Anna's legacy endures in bloodlines and titles, the echoes of her sacrifice still ripple through the pages of dark royal secrets. Yet even Anna's monumental devotion would find its mirror in another queen, one who refused to remain within palace walls and who followed her king onto battlefields while carrying the future of a realm beneath her ribs. At merely 13 years old, Eleanor of Castile was thrust from the sun-soaked palaces of Spain into a life forged in the fires of war and political ambition, bound in marriage to her cousin Edward, who would one day rule as King Edward I of England. History often casts her as the dutiful queen consort standing quietly behind a powerful king, but hidden within the pages of untold royal history lies a truth far fiercer, one that belongs among the dark royal secrets seldom uttered beyond stone castle walls. Eleanor did not simply reside in royal chambers draped in velvet and gold. She rode beside Edward into the clash of steel and arrows, traversing rugged landscapes and foreign crusades, while carrying the bloodline of England in her womb. 16 times she endured the perilous journey of pregnancy, her body becoming a relentless crucible where politics and motherhood collided. Yet medieval life was merciless. Illness and warfare loomed like shadows over royal cradles. One after another, Eleanor watched most of her children slip away in infancy or childhood, a heartbreak that must have echoed like a funeral bell through her soul. Only a few survived the relentless toll, including the future Edward II, who would inherit both a throne and a kingdom forever shaped by his mother's sacrifices. Eleanor's final pregnancy proved a mortal blow, leaving her weakened as she journeyed north with Edward in 1290. Consumed by illness, she died far from the comfort of her palace walls. In a testament to love and sorrow entwined, King Edward I commanded the construction of 12 monumental stone crosses, each marking the place where her funeral procession paused from Lincoln to Westminster. These Eleanor crosses still rise from English soil, silent sentinels whispering of a queen whose love was as unyielding as her spirit. Yet as enduring as Eleanor's legacy remains, hers was not the only royal heart forged in grief and iron will, for another queen born into one of Europe's most formidable dynasties would soon wield her own power amidst revolution and tragedy. At just 15 years old, Maria Carolina of Austria stepped across the threshold of her childhood and into the perilous labyrinth of European power, marrying King Ferdinand IV of Naples and Sicily, a union not of romance, but of survival for dynasties. She was the daughter of the formidable Maria Theresa, born into a family that held empires in its grip, yet knew all too well the cost of thrones soaked in blood and betrayal. But hidden within the annals of dark royal secrets and the untold royal history is the brutal reality of Maria Carolina's life. Though she loathed her husband and dreaded the marriage that claimed the lives of 3 of her sisters before her, she surrendered her own body to the relentless machine of royal motherhood. Over years shadowed by political upheaval and personal grief, Maria Carolina gave birth to 17 children, transforming herself into one of the most prolific royal mothers in history and etching her name into the ranks of powerful women in history who sacrificed flesh and spirit for the survival of kingdoms. Yet her story was more than just maternity. It was a tale of political mastery and ruthless resolve. Despite the burdens of endless pregnancies and the bitter losses of 10 children who died young, Maria Carolina seized the reins of statecraft with an iron will, navigating court conspiracies and shaping the alliances that would determine the fate of Southern Europe. Her world erupted in chaos as the French Revolution spilled across borders, claiming the life of her beloved sister Marie Antoinette under the merciless blade of the guillotine. And when Napoleon's ambitions thundered across Europe, Maria Carolina's own throne trembled, forcing her into exile, a queen stripped of power, but never of her indomitable spirit. She died in Austria at 62, battered by revolution, yet remembered as a sovereign who refused to be conquered by fate. But even as Maria Carolina fought wars on thrones and within her own body, there existed another queen, whose womb bore tragedy upon tragedy, a woman whose crown would ultimately die with her leaving behind a throne draped in silence and sorrow. Few monarchs ever wore a crown so heavy with grief as Queen Anne of Great Britain, a woman whose reign shimmered with political triumph, yet whose personal life was drowned in relentless sorrow, a chapter carved deep into the dark royal secrets and untold royal history that history books often whisper only in passing. For 16 agonizing years, Anne's body became both a battlefield and a tomb, enduring 18 pregnancies in a desperate bid to secure an heir and preserve the fragile line of the Stuart dynasty. Each swelling of her belly carried with it hope for the crown's future. But time and again that hope was crushed beneath the weight of silent chambers, empty cradles, and funeral processions. Miscarriages, stillbirths, and infant deaths haunted her nights like ghosts, shadows clinging to the edges of her royal duties. Even her only son to survive beyond infancy, Prince William, Duke of Gloucester, succumbed at just 11 years old, snuffing out the last flicker of dynastic certainty. Modern historians believe Anne may have suffered from Hughes syndrome, a blood disorder that clot bloods dangerously, and could have made sustaining pregnancies nearly impossible, a cruel twist of fate that transformed the Queen's womb into a chamber of sorrow. Yet amid the private storms that battered her soul, Anne guided her nation through one of its most seismic shifts, overseeing the Acts of Union in 1707 that forged the United Kingdom of Great Britain, rewriting the map and the power structures of Europe forever. She died in 1714 at the age of 49, her body frail, her spirit battered, and the Stuart dynasty extinguished with her final breath. No crown, no matter how studded with jewels, could shield her from a fate that remains among history's most harrowing royal tragedies. Yet even as the candles burned low in Westminster, another queen half a continent away was waging her own battle, not only against childbirth, but against rival bloodlines and empires poised to devour her kingdom. In the rugged heart of the Caucasus, where mountains cut the sky and kingdoms rose and fell like shadows, Queen Darajan of Georgia, also known as Daria, stands as one of history's most staggering symbols of maternal sacrifice and political ferocity, a tale buried deep within dark royal secrets and untold royal history that few outside her homeland have ever truly heard. From the tender age of 12 until she reached 42, Darajan's body bore the staggering weight of 23 pregnancies, an almost incomprehensible feat even among the ranks of the most prolific royal mothers in history. She became the living crucible in which the future of the Georgian crown was forged, each child a fragile pawn in the ruthless game of dynastic survival, each childbirth another wager in a life where death always lurked nearby. Yet in a royal court where motherhood was power, Darajan refused to be merely a vessel for heirs. She was a political strategist of chilling precision. Her husband, King Heraclius II, already had sons from a previous marriage, and Darajan maneuvered tirelessly to secure the throne for her own children, persuading the king to alter Georgia's succession laws, a move that ignited fierce rivalries within the royal family and set ablaze a series of events that would ultimately invite catastrophe. Upon Heraclius's death, the throne passed not to one of Darajan's sons, but to her stepson George XIV, who quickly dismissed the altered will, plunging the kingdom into chaos as familial rivalries spiraled into open political warfare. Amid the turmoil, the Russian Empire seized its moment, annexing Georgia and dissolving the fragile sovereignty Darajan had tried so fiercely to protect. Stripped of her crown and exiled to St. Petersburg, she spent her final years under the cold watch of imperial guards, a mother of 23 who had once wielded the power to alter dynasties, yet died far from the land she loved. But while Darajan's life was an epic of political intrigue and maternal endurance, the stories of all these royal women share a single searing truth, a truth demanding to be remembered. As we step back to glimpse the legacy they left behind, woven through marble monuments, shattered crowns, and the silent corridors of history. Behind every glittering crown and every marble monument stands a woman whose body bore the scars of history, a queen whose womb became a battlefield, whose breath became the currency of empires, and whose silent suffering fueled dynasties that still echo through our world today. These were not merely royal consorts. They were the lifeblood of nations, the architects of bloodlines and the silent keepers of secrets buried beneath gold and silk. From Mumtaz Mahal's final breath beneath the weight of her 14th child, to Queen Anne's 18 heartbreaks that ended a dynasty, to Queen Darajan's 23 labors entwined with political war, these women paid prices so colossal that even time has struggled to remember them. Their tales are more than footnotes. They are warnings and reminders of how power can devour those who uphold it, of how the history we celebrate is often written in the blood of women, unseen and unheard. It's easy to admire the Taj Mahal or gaze upon royal portraits and marvel at the beauty, but behind those masterpieces lie stories of pain, sacrifice, and resilience that demand to be told. And perhaps the most haunting truth of all is this: while kings conquered with swords, queens conquered with flesh and soul, and the world owes them debts it can never fully repay. So now I turn this question to you. Which of these royal mothers' stories shook you the most? Whose sacrifice do you believe deserves to be shouted from the rooftops, rather than whispered in dark royal secrets? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you crave more untold royal history and the hidden lives of powerful women who shaped the world, make sure to hit subscribe, save this video for later, and share it with someone who needs to know that behind every empire stood a woman who bled for its survival. Because history doesn't just belong to kings. It belongs to queens who paid the ultimate price, and their stories deserve to live on.